Hello, you guys. Okay, so end of the 10th week. End of the 10th week. And I had an appointment on Monday. My symptoms haven't changed, so I'm not going to talk about that today. What I'm mainly concerned about today is the doctor's appointments that I had. So I had an ultrasound on Monday, and it was for dating. And I have not been able to keep enough water down to get a full bladder. And so what she said when the tech was trying to do the transabdominal ultrasound was that my uterus was flapped over because it wasn't supported by my bladder. I don't know what the heck that means. And as a result, they couldn't see enough, and so they did the transvaginal, which they would have done anyway because it was ordered as a complete ultrasound, which means that they do the transabdominal and vaginal. So they did the transvaginal. They were able to see everything okay, I guess. They didn't really show me. This is probably the worst ultrasound I've ever had in terms of the tech being cooperative. So according to her measurements, I'm actually only at 8 weeks right now instead of 10. I don't believe her. Like, okay, I understand that she did the measurements and that's how they came out, but what I think from my personal experience and from knowing my body is if what she was saying was correct, that would mean that I got my positive pregnancy test approximately 6 days after ovulating. That's it, just 6 days. And my body usually takes about 3 weeks from ovulating to come up with a positive test. So it's really difficult for me to believe that the measurements were done properly. And honestly, with what she said about the condition of my uterus and whatnot, I am thinking a possibility of two things. One, that I ovulated at my regular time, but that it took an extended period of time to actually implant. And so the growth of the sac, I don't know, just isn't as far along. The other thing that I'm thinking, which has happened to me in the past, is that they just got bad measurements. So with him, they actually had to, a couple different times, we did one measurement that came out so low, like the first percentile, like that low. And so they had us redo an ultrasound a couple days later, and it was 5+% different. And so they just chalked it up to, my uterus or him being in such a position that they weren't able to see properly. And I kind of feel like that's what happened this time, is that she just wasn't able to get a good view and good measurements. And it could be because of where the baby's at. The other thing she said is that the sac is at the top of my uterus, and I have what's called a septate uterus, which means that there's a little dip like this. So normally your uterus would be like this, it'd be round, but I have a little dip. So there's also like where the uterus can completely split, or where the split goes all the way down the vagina, or just a partial split, kind of like this, but mine just has a little dip, that's all. And so there's a possibility that the implantation is somewhere near that dip, and so it kind of skews the view. So these are things that I'm thinking, not that she said, and I'm not a doctor, and I'm not an ultrasound tech. I don't know if this is right. This is just, like I said, what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling. Also, the way that my symptoms have been, I don't think that I could be this far behind either, because the symptoms wouldn't have shown up at the proper time, at the proper intensity, just compared to previous pregnancies. But that doesn't mean that she's not right. If I do end up finding out from another doctor that she's right, from, you know, another scan that's consistent with that. Then we will go from there, and I will consider my due date changed. Now, I plan on trying to stick with this doctor until the second trimester, like halfway through the second trimester, but something else happened as well. So today I went and I saw the actual OB, and I hated her. I am very big on advocating for yourself when it comes to doctors and choosing them and how they treat you and whatnot. And this doctor was terrible. She walked into the room. She barely introduced herself. I've never seen this doctor before. The only time I was ever in the office, I saw a nurse, and that was it. So she walks in the room, barely introduces herself, immediately starts taking my clothes off so that she can do, I mean, I was wearing their gown, but she starts removing the gown so that she can do my breast exam, and without saying, okay, I'm going to do your breast exam now, would you mind doing this, or, you know, moving your arm this way? No, she just came right up next to me, was pulling my arms everywhere, moving my gown, and then asked me to lay down and didn't ask me to, I had taken the little sheet that they give you to, like, cover yourself a little tiny bit, and I had actually wrapped it around me, because obviously I had him in the appointment with me and I was by myself. And so I actually wrapped it around me so it'd be secured. And when I did that, it couldn't just easily be just like ripped right off, because it wasn't just laying, it was wrapped. And she asked me to lay down and didn't ask me to take it off, didn't ask me to adjust it, nothing. She just starts pulling at the sheet. And she like can't get it off because he was sitting on my abdomen, which was kind of on the sheet, and obviously I was sitting on top of the sheet. So I finally get it out, and then as she's doing things, she doesn't tell me until as she's doing them. So instead of being like, okay, I'm going to do the exam now, I'm going to place my hand on your thigh and then do this or do that or insert this. No, she's like, I'm touching your thigh now, after she's already touching me. And when she did my exam, which were two very, very quick little pushes on my abdomen, which I'm sure she couldn't feel anything. When she did that, it was painful. When I had to do a PAP because I was overdue, that was painful. When she did her own exam, that was painful. And this whole time I'm sitting in discomfort. There was a nurse in the room as well, who I'm sure could tell I was in discomfort. I'm not entirely sure, honestly, because I had my eyes closed because of how much it hurt. And immediately after this, she asked me if I had any questions, and the one thing I did want to talk about is risks with how his birth went, but they need the surgical records for that. And although they already requested them, they haven't received them yet. And so I told her based on that, I don't have any questions that we can talk about now. And she left the room, gone, that was it. So worst by far appointment I have ever had for pregnancy. I am never going back. I tried to be polite and schedule a next appointment, but I guarantee you that I am canceling that appointment and I am never going back to that office. At least not to see her, because it was terrible. And at this point, I'm just going to start over on base. So that was all with the civilian doctor that I chose because I thought it'd be better. And I'm going to just go on base, and I'm just going to tell them, you know, that I haven't had any testing done, that I've had a PAP, but that's it. And we'll see if I get treated better there. The good thing is that I get to choose between an OB and a midwife. And based on my experience I just had, I think I'm going to request a midwife because they always have more time for you. They're nicer. Also, when I mentioned that I'm still nursing and that I plan to tandem nurse, this doctor didn't give me any resources. She's like, well, if you're going to try it, then I can't help that. But I would suggest looking for books. Some books are helpful, some are not. And I'm like, thanks. That's a lot of information, you know. And her tone was very discouraging. She told me that I need to be concerned about my hydration, which I know. And that it can be very difficult to sustain the hydration necessary for being both pregnant and nursing. He still loves this toy. I don't get it. And so that was like something really, really quick at the end that she mentioned, knowing that I'm on the Zofran now for the nausea. And that was the extent of my doctor's appointment. So I know I mentioned before I've got that doctor's appointment when I go down to Arizona. It's the day after Christmas. So I'll talk about that. What is that? In 2 weeks. And we'll see. I really, really hope that that goes better. He's not going to be my doctor, but I really hope that he can give me better information and that he will not talk down to me. My mom absolutely loves him, so I'm really, really hoping that that is the case. So, other than that, we're just preparing to fly, and so my next video next week, I'll probably talk about how the flying goes with being pregnant, having a morning sickness, having a baby in my lap that's also nursing. And I'll just, if I have any tips, I'll let you guys know. Otherwise, it's just gonna be that. If you guys have any questions, any suggestions for my videos in the next couple of weeks, please let me know in the comments below. I am looking forward to speaking with you next week in the glorious state of Arizona. And you guys have a great weekend.